The following is a presentation of Surprise Church. El siguiente programa es la presentación de la iglesia Surprise.
How many of you, so this is not a requirement to come, although it should be. How many of you have seen the new Star Wars yet? Anybody here seen the new Star Wars? Okay. Do you recommend it? Is it a thumbs up recommendation? Yeah, 2 thumbs up from Alan and 2 toe thumbs as well, yeah? We decided yesterday, we had a little brief moment where we thought we might get in to see it at noon. If we do it now, we can make it happen. And it's a PG-13 movie. Our kids are not 13 yet, and our youngest our youngest who went with us was 7. Oh, he's halfway there. He'll be able to halfways enjoy it. So I brought him and our older daughter, Lila and Graham, and we just went with some family, and it's nostalgic. I didn't anticipate it feeling nostalgic. But when I can remember watching it as a kid, there's something kind of cool about bringing your kids there. Well, we're watching the movie, and of course, when I go to movies, I can't just go to movies. I have to buy the least healthy food there. And so we got the ginormous jug of popcorn that goes up faster than the price of Apple products, And so we got this big Star Wars jug, I guess, the commemorative, I'm sure it's going to be worth a lot of money someday, jug of popcorn. And maybe we shouldn't have eaten the popcorn, and it would be worth even more someday, I don't know. But we got the big jug, and we're passing it back and forth, and we were like 10 minutes into the movie, and all the cholesterol is inside of us already. It's already been ingested, so, we had this dilemma, like, do we leave the movie, or do we, it's hard to leave. But my son had kind of a tough time with some of the opening scenes because they were a little bit like action-packed, a lot of laser guns shooting and lightsabers flaring, and so he kind of was watching it a little bit like this, and we're a little like, is this going to be okay? And I said, I'm going to be a good dad and take him out, but I also want to watch Star Wars. So I had that internal dilemma as well, and finally, when I saw the popcorn tub empty, I thought, well, there's 2 reasons to walk out. So I grabbed the popcorn, asked my son to come with me, and but he wanted to stay, actually. So I just went out and get the refill myself, and I get to the counter, of course, and I'm like, I'd like a refill, because, the big ones are free refills, right? And he looked at me, he's like, no, not today. Not for Star Wars. Well, it's extra big, and it's extra, big, so I don't get a refill. No. Okay, fine, I'll just, can you fill it up, and I pay for it? Yes, but you have to buy a new cup, too. Fine. Can I get a water, too, because all the salt is making me thirsty? Fine. He brings them both to me, like $11 or $12 later. I go back and sit down feeling mugged. And movie ensues, and we're watching this movie, and I'm looking around. And I look to my right, and there's a kid I coached in summer soccer right next to me, next to his dad, watching the same way my son is watching. The dad is kind of having the same dilemma of, do I go get popcorn, or do I take my son out? But no, let's just stay here because this is the coolest thing. And I look around, and I see the same scenario all over the theater. Parents taking kids who are probably too young, according to the PG-13 guidelines, but they wanted them to experience this for some reason. And the line was out the door when we got there for this, not like a brand new, it's not like it just came out, it's been out for over a week. The line was out the door all day long to get in to buy tickets for this movie. And I'm looking around, and I got this moment of, man, this is interesting. This is like generational. Like, I don't know another movie that's like that, where you can see the same story in a new movie with some of the same characters, and you watch on the screen, and you see Princess Leia and Han Solo, Harrison Ford. Of course, they're old now, older. Excuse me if you're older than they are, but you get what I'm saying. And they're still Han and Leia. It was like really, really cool. And then as I'm watching, and I'm seeing this moment as I'm watching wrinkly Han Solo, and hug wrinkly Princess Leia, and I'm watching dads with their kids next to me, I got this flash of heat come over me. Like, that didn't take much time at all. Since the first time I watched Star Wars with my family. Actually, we watched it when it came out on what are those video discs? You know those things? Where you slide it in to the disc player, and then you pull it out. Am I the only one old enough to remember that, please? Video discs. So we watched it on that thing. It was magical when I was a kid. And then we regressed and got the audio tapes. You had to rewind and forward. Don't ask me about that. And I remember watching Darth Vader for the first time all out of the living room, and I watched around the stove. I remember watching Darth Vader come out of his destroyer and board Princess Leia's ship from behind the stove. And so I felt a little bit better about the fear of my son. I felt like, this is good. I turned out okay. I turned out okay. But in that moment, I felt this flash of, oh my goodness, it didn't take that long for me to age to where I am back from when I was hiding behind the stove. And pretty soon, there's going to be another movie where the young characters in episode 7 are back for episode 14, and my kid is gouging himself with popcorn with his little son or daughter. And I got this powerful feeling of the quickness and the passage of time. And how, man, time goes fast. We got home from the movie theater, and just for a moment, I went upstairs to change clothes, and then I just had this irresistible urge to do sit-ups after eating all that popcorn. So I sat down, I did 20 sit-ups. I'm like, oh man, I got to work a few of these off. And so I was looking, and I'm doing sit-ups in my room, and I look at the door on our bedroom, and one of our kids had taken an ink pen and drawn a huge thing on the door. Nice white painted door. And I started making a mental list of the possible means of punishment to make sure that never happens again. The next moment, it's on. I'm going to go downstairs and lay down the law. And then I looked again, and what it looked like our little 3-year-old had drawn was like a little Christmas tree bulb hanging on a string. Maybe it was just a weird imagination on my part, or maybe she was just trying to hold on to Christmas a little bit longer too, and knew that the tree was coming down soon. So I resisted that urge to go downstairs and lay the law down. I just said, let's just wait till after Christmas. I walked downstairs, family in the home. We listened to what we do every year, Walter Brennan's A Christmas Farmer's Prayer story that we played. It used to be on a record. Now we can find it on YouTube, and we play it, and our family sits around the fake fire, and we listen to Walter Brennan praying to God as we've listened for 30 plus years. And usually by the end, all of us are wiping in a manly way tears from our eyes, pretending that we have something stuck in them, or a contact has gotten loose or something. And I had the same feeling I had at Star Wars. Man, it's going to be a day not too long from now where my kid is probably just going to touch a button on his glasses, and he's going to play a hologram on the screen, and Walter Brennan's Christmas Prayer will be up there, and actually he'll probably find a way of raising him from the dead by then, I don't know. And they'll do the same kinds of things we did now. The fast pace of time doesn't hit you in a moment, but there are moments where it hits you. The quickness of life doesn't appear apparent every day when you can go through the rhythm and routine and have times where you're waiting and seasons of longing and seasons of, man, when is this ever going to be over? But there are days when it's like, whoa. How many of you have had one of those moments? Pretty much everybody, unless you're under 6, have had a moment where you just are amazed at the brevity of life and the passage of time, and how you're doing something right now that you did with your parents, and they probably did with their parents. And it actually, when you're young and you think, I'm young, I've always been young, so the best predictor of the future is the past. I've been young, I'm always going to be young, and life is always going to be like this. And then all of a sudden you look back and see that now you're the parent of someone who's young, or the grandparent of someone who has their own kids, and it hits you. It hits you. I think, all of us fathers were looking for something at Star Wars. It's kind of an antidote to what we sense in those moments, and an antidote for the brevity of time. Jesus was talking in John chapter 5 to some people who were looking for that same antidote. He was talking to actually really, really religious people, and these religious people were rejecting him, even though, of course, he's God, come in a human body, and he just decides to confront them. These are men who know their Bibles through and through, who'd memorized large sections, if not the entire section of the Old Testament. These are men who had the rules all memorized, who at least on the outside followed them. Jesus said, behind closed doors, you're different people, and I know it. But people came to them for advice, people came to them for guidance, and there was respect, there was prestige, there was honor, there was joy and glory on a human level that came with that position. But Jesus looked at them, and he just saw empty shells who were wasting their lives, busy with the wrong thing. So they come to Jesus, they're criticizing Jesus, they're critiquing Jesus, and he says, as he always does, just words that just cut right to the heart of the matter. John chapter 5. He says, you search the scriptures because you think that in them you have eternal life. He says that God, in other words, God put a compass, a thirsty compass inside every one of us that is hunting for life. And he says, you in particular, you're hunting through your Bibles, telling people verse after verse, rule after rule, trying to parse words. You're trying to get deep into the Word of God, which is a good thing, but you believe that in that Word is life. Other people look for life elsewhere. Other people look for life in recreation, where they pack their calendars full of as much as they can. Other people look for life in consumption, where they go beyond in debt, spend far beyond their means because consumption has become their identity. Other people look for life in their children, where they jam-pack their lives with stuff that the kids don't even want to do and will limit nothing to provide opportunities, advancements, out-of-town things, tournaments, schedules, beyond understanding for their kids' sake, we say. But at the end of the day, it's because I'm looking for life and it's slipping through my fingers. We can look for life in all the wrong places. We can look for love in all the wrong places. We can look for meaning in all the wrong places. We can look for truth in all the wrong places. We can look for joy in all the wrong places. Jesus says, you guys, you have the Bible in your hands and you're looking right through it. He says, you are looking in the scriptures because you think in them you have life. But here's the thing. It is they, he says, that testify to me. In other words, unless the Bible, unless religion, unless church, unless hockey, unless soccer, unless pleasure, unless vacation, unless leisure, unless schedules, unless budgets, unless how we spend our energy and time, unless that points to Jesus, unless it revolves around Jesus, unless it is subservient to his joy that he wants to have for us and his vision that he has for our lives, it doesn't lead to life. And we're going to get to the end of our lives and feel like we've wasted them unless we find a way to revolve everything around him and say no to everything that doesn't. Even the Bible, Jesus says, can be used as an excuse to not follow God. I can find my own verses. I can pluck and pick and choose. You can use religion. You can use rules like these men were doing. He said, you search the scriptures and you follow your rules and you get your positions of authority, but because you think that there's life, you think that's what real life is? But you don't remember that they all point to me. Yet you refuse to come to me to have life. What an ending. I know you're looking. I built you to hunt for God. God put a little piece of himself in everyone else that wants to come back to its maker. And we search everywhere. The brokenness of sin causes us to just cling to one thing after another, hunt for one thing after another, look for one shortcut after another. But the answer, Jesus says, is, look, it's really simple. Let me be the center. Come to me and ask me what my will is for your life. Use my vision, my guidance as your navigation system. Say no to everything that pulls you away. Say yes to everything that you can use as a method of following me. You search the scriptures, you search the movie theaters, you search the busy schedules and budgets of life because you think that in them there is life, and yet it is me that they should point to. Don't refuse to come to me to have life. I was finishing up my set of sit-ups, as I said. And after making the decision to put off punishment for the door, I guess there was a second door in our bedroom that she also did. Thanks, honey. This verse came to mind. You can discipline your kids to death. You can get your family to follow rules. You can try to be like the neighbors or like people down the street. There's no life there. Sometimes I think that Jesus would smile when he sees paint on a wall, ink on a door, because that's what life is. He made us to experience the ups and downs of family life and to slow down the passage of time so that we could look into those moments as something other than an opportunity to implant a rule, but an opportunity to implant grace. This next year, we are going to be breaking busy. As you see the title slide of our January series, I really believe that our greatest problem isn't that we haven't found enough to do. I really believe that our greatest problem isn't that there aren't enough options. I believe that our greatest problem is busyness. Jesus told story after story about people who are being strangled by their schedules and by other priorities. He told story after story of people for whom God was being squeezed out of their lives because they had tried to fit everything else in, looking for life, but not finding it. So we're going to take the month of January and we're just going to break busy. We're going to just start over, kind of clean slate, and just start teaching and reminding ourselves of biblical principles that help us to not get to the end of a month, at the end of a year, the end of a decade, the end of a generation, the end of a life, and say, you know what? If I could go back and do it all over again, I wouldn't sweat the small stuff. I wouldn't try to be involved in as many things as possible. I wouldn't look for life in all the wrong places. I would do the things that I would be proud of decades later. I would do the things that my kids would remember decades later. I would do the things that they would teach their kids. I would do the things that would really matter. And I wouldn't want my family to remember me with my face in a phone or on a laptop. I would not be too busy for my family. I would not be too busy for people in need. I would not be too busy for faith, life, church, God. I wouldn't be too busy for life. In your bulletin, there's an insert. I want to just invite the band back up, and just to invite you, I just hand wrote the only sermon note I want you to think about today. I want you to consider 5 people who need this. 5 people in your life, maybe you work with, play with, live with, next to. People you know that need this. That this next month of teaching is going to be just a do-or-die month for them because busyness is killing us. I talked to a friend of mine who's a nurse practitioner in the hospital, and she said people are sicker than they've ever been. People are coming in with stuff that they've, not just one thing, multiple things at the same time, because, our lifestyles are killing us. They're killing us, and just because everyone around me is doing it doesn't mean it's normal, it doesn't mean it's good, and it doesn't mean that there's life there. We're going to talk about what life does God want us to live, regardless of what others are doing, regardless of what expectations are. So we can learn how to say yes to the right things, no to the wrong things, and turn everything else in the right direction. Think of 5 people who need this, and I hope you're one of those 5. If you can keep on thinking, keep on writing, keep on praying about those people, and look for a chance to nudge them and welcome them to come with you. Would you stand and would you pray with me?